Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm expecting a lot of people RSVP'd for this morning. So I am going to ask everyone to keep yourselves on mute, just to keep everybody focused on the conversation. I believe I disabled the chat feature here, so if you do have a question, I think we disabled it for the Zoom thing on Saturday for Gala, and so I'm not sure you're able to chat at this point. So as we go through this morning, obviously if you have questions or if you want to add some commentary, you can definitely unmute yourself and throw in some questions as we go. There'll be an opportunity for some questions and a Q&A at the end of this presentation. I'm also recording this. I had many parents reach out and say that they could not attend this morning, but they asked if we would record it. So I'm just going to also let you all know that I am recording this, as also you're aware of that. And I'm joined this morning by my co-pilot, Rachel Waldron, who is also on this morning. So, Ms. Waldron, at any time you work very close to young children. So, if any time you feel like you want to, pop in and say something, please do so as well. Again, I thank you all for joining us at this very important conversation, and so pleased to have so many join us this morning. The goal today, obviously, with this program is that we want to help work with you to keep your children safe, make informed choices, develop healthy relationships, and just know all the ways that God supports them in these efforts. But before we begin, as we do all things, we will start with a prayer. So let us be still for a moment and focus our hearts and minds on our prayer. And remember that we are in the loving presence of God. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. The valiant one whose steps are guided by the Lord, who will delight in his way, may stumble, but he will never fall, for the Lord holds his hand. The scripture passage reminds us that God extends to us a faithful hand that will lead us with love. And Lord, we ask you to help us be examples for the children you have given to our care, so that they may be guided by their faith in you each day. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. So this is the first time that that we're leading something for parents of this age group, kindergarten through grade 3. But actually, before I do this, I forgot I put the slide in. Our Home and School Association is putting on a parent workshop about this time next week on Wednesday. And I was so pleased to see so many people sign up for this workshop. I hope you're aware of this workshop next Wednesday. I think we can all use this. Mental health and parenting during a pandemic. Wow, we have been through a lot in the past year. And HSA is bringing Dr. Rachel Jacobs, a child psychologist, to have a conversation next week via Zoom, again, to talk about, how's it going? What do we need to do? We're not out of this yet. How do we keep moving forward? So thanks to the HSA for that. You can find more information in the buzz in the HSA blast on how to sign up for that. I encourage you to do it, even if you can only make part of it. But again, I just want to let you know that that is certainly out there. And thanks again to our HSA. I thought I had the chat feature enabled, but I don't. But I'm going to ask you, and maybe hopefully you've been thinking about what you've been hoping to learn about this morning. Since I don't have the chat feature typed in, when we get to the Q&A section, if there's something that I haven't been able to cover, or you thought this presentation was going to provide, I'm going to give you an opportunity to give some feedback. And if we have to do another version of this or follow up, I'm more than happy to help work with parents in this area. This is such an important area to keep our children safe, and that, working with you, that we can do this together. So the agenda for today was a quick kind of virtues or protecting God's children refresher and how it relates to student education. Many of you are parent volunteers. You probably have been through the virtues training or the protecting God's children training in order to be a volunteer. And this really helps, give us the language, the guidelines. How do we work together as a community to keep children safe from child sexual predators? If you remember from the training, there's a student education component as well. And we changed our program this year. So we have a brand new program. It's very different. I'm excited about it. And again, we're here today to kind of let you know about, why we're teaching these topics, your role, how do we make sure that parents are informed about what we're teaching so that you can carry on the conversation at home and, for years to come as well. And I'll give you a little sample of the curriculum. The teachers at the individual grade levels will share with you the resources, so you'll see them, but at least you'll have a little bit of a preview. And again, a little bit of Q&A there. So why is this necessary? We need to work together, parents, all employees, everybody in the church, everybody in our community need to work together to keep our children safe. And like I said, from child predators. We know, unfortunately, it's just not a nice world out there in all areas. And all employees, all volunteers need to do this virtues training, this protecting God's children training. If you haven't had the ability to do it yet, they are conducting these trainings online. You can email me afterwards. I'd be happy to explain to you how to do these trainings. Since this year, because we haven't had the opportunity for a lot of parent volunteers, I haven't really put a whole lot out there about this training, but it is something that is mandatory for all volunteers. And quite frankly, I think any parent should do the Protecting God's Children training. It's very informative, and you can do it anytime. And what's nice now is that, since you can do the training online, you can do it at home, where in the past you always had to come and do the live training session. So I would take advantage of the online exploration if you can. But we're mandated as a Catholic institution. We are mandated to make sure our employees know how to keep kids safe, how our volunteers know how to keep kids safe, and we're also mandated to teach children how to keep themselves safe. So it is mandated, but I also think it's essential. So I hope we can get past the mandated part and focus on the essential. Some stats. Why is this necessary? We know bullying is an unfortunate part of, the human experience. And, we need to, work with our kids to work against that culture, to stand up, to not, engage in bullying behaviors, to protect themselves from bullying behaviors. And we also need to be aware as adults that we need to create safe environments for our kids as well. Our kids have been online a lot this year, right? And we know that predators are using the internet more than ever to, groom potential victims. And we need to make sure that not only are our kids safe in the physical world, but also safe in the virtual world, which we're spending so much more time in. We know that, the research shows that when kids are aware of situations and know how to respond in certain situations, those self-protection skills are essential. But it's not the stopgap, it's not everything, but we know that it does make a difference when we have open conversations that, children, it's a beautiful world, but there's some dangers here. You need to be aware of it. And how do you keep your kids safe? And parents need to have the confidence that you can have these conversations with your children in appropriate ways without, causing a whole lot of anxiety or making them ever afraid to go out into the world. This is a part of life and part of parenting. And again, we're working in partnership with you to help. We know that child safety is everybody's business. And when we as a community look out for each other, not just our own kids, but the community, and we have a common language, we have common expectations, we can create much more confident, stronger, safer kids in a safer community as well. Unfortunately, the stats are 1 in 6 boys, 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused by the age of 18. So, and these are reported cases. Sometimes, you'll look at research and because not all sexual abuse is reported by kids and not known, it sometimes doesn't come out until, they're much, much older, that they even think the stats are even higher than this. So there's a problem. We have to make sure that we keep our kids safe. And another grim reminder, if you've been through the training, if you haven't, 75% of reported cases of sexual abuse are perpetrated by adults who are in the child's life. So 75% are known and trusted members of in a child's life. So we have to be aware. We have to make sure that we have these conversations with our children so that they know how to communicate with a trusted adult that something might be happening. As a reminder, what is child sexual abuse? Thankfully, it's a very broad definition. So it's any interaction with a child used for sexual gratification. It could be with physical contact, without physical contact. And all children of all backgrounds of both genders are vulnerable to abuse. So again, it's a very broad definition, and I want all of us to keep that in mind, that it is, with or without physical contact, but if it is any interaction that involves a child for sexual gratification, that is child sexual abuse. Okay, so wow, I just painted a scary picture. It's not hopeless. There are things that we can do as a community. There's things that caring adults can do. So, as much as this is, you've learned about some of this in the Protecting God's Children training, if you've had the ability to do it, you probably have read articles, you probably had talked about this with your, parent friends and stuff, but we need to have ongoing conversations. This can't be a one and done kind of training. So this is why, I'm committed and the parish is committed to having these conversations on a regular basis so that we can, continue to inform ourselves and work together as a community. These conversations may cause some anxiety with your children, but, as we have these conversations, they'll have some more confidence and knowledge how to respond in a dangerous situation, or hopefully just avoid dangerous situations altogether. So there are many things that we can do together as caring adults to keep our children safe. I think first and foremost, going back to those stats that we talked about, the prevalence of child sexual abuse, given the number of people that are right here on our conversation this morning, stats wise, I know that there's probably members in our community right now on the Zoom call that have been affected by some kind of abuse, whether it was your personal situation or someone in your family. We've been affected by child sexual abuse or some kind of child abuse. So it's important, when you are, having these conversations with your children, make sure that you and your spouse or your other caregivers, be on the same page and make sure that you're aware of each other's situations first and foremost. as adults, having those conversations. But then, if this is something that hasn't really been resolved for you and gives you great pain as well, make sure that you have an opportunity to, process those feelings, maybe, seek additional outside professional help as well, so that when you have these conversations, because these are lifelong conversations. This is, again, not one and done. And you want to make sure that when you're having these conversations that you're able to have, healthy conversations and open conversations about this, about how to protect your child, not maybe about your own personal situation, but how to, have these conversations with your child and be in a good place yourself. So if there's some part of you that still needs some support there, please seek it. There's nothing to be ashamed of, and nothing to hold on to on your own. There's people there that can help. So adults, right off the bat, hopefully you've heard this before, but I'm going to reiterate it again. When we're working with young children, it's so important that we teach children the correct names for all their body parts. We don't come up with silly names for our arms and our eyes. And our kids are very comfortable talking about their arms and their eyes and their ears. It should be the same thing about our child's, what we would call private parts. So please don't teach them silly names, teach them the correct names. And that way too, there's no shame involved with it. If they do have to talk about it, we want to make sure that kids can always, talk about even health issues, if something hurts, if something is a rash, anything like that. If it's private and it seems like, oh, we can't talk about it, even some of the basic things you might not even know, even prior to anything ever happening to a child. So if you haven't been doing this, I would start doing it. And it's very natural as the kids are younger, and when they're bathing or you're washing them and stuff, to, if they ask, what is this called? Give them the right name for it. So that they have it. The power to say no is really important. And, that no is a complete sentence, and no means no. And it's also good for them to hear you say no as well. Make sure that that's part of everybody's vernacular. But it's okay for a child to say no, particularly when they don't want to be touched, right? And the classic situation here in a family is, you might have an aunt or an uncle or grandparents, and give Aunt so-and-so a kiss, or give Grandpa so-and-so a hug and stuff. And we know that, our grandparents love that, our aunts, uncles love it. It's a sign of affection. But I mean, if a child doesn't want to be touched, if they don't want the kiss, they don't want the hug, then it's okay. And it's okay to, have that conversation with other adults in your family to say, you know what, it's okay if they don't want to be touched, and don't take it personally. That's their physical boundaries. This is sometimes a point of contention in families, but what you want to do as parents in a situation is make sure that, a child knows that his or her body is his or her body, and there's boundaries there that can be protected, and that their comfort level in terms of touch is important, and they need to understand that boundary, and they need to be able to communicate that. And as parents and caregivers, we need to honor that. So again, that's important. And if that's not something that you have been prone to doing, that might be something that you can consider changing as well. Because if children don't really learn from a young age that their bodies are their own bodies, and no one has the right to touch them or make them feel uncomfortable or pass any boundaries, then it's going to be harder for them to, when things get confusing later on as they get older. So we can start young, that they know that they can say no if they don't want to be touched. There are, we use the word secret a lot, and it's helpful to have children know the difference between the word private and the meaning of private, and then secret. Private means that, you know what, this is something that we're not going to tell the world. So, maybe you have a surprise for a parent for Mother's Day or Father's Day. Let's keep this private, but eventually she'll know, right? Secrets often have to do with something that we're hiding and that we're probably going to hide for a long time or not ever tell. So, the an important thing here with using words private and secret is that we always want children to be to have that sense of the ability to always say something to an adult, a trusted adult, if they think that something is wrong. And people that want to perpetrate harm with the child will often create secrets to see if they can have that kind of trusting relationship. So be mindful of when you're using the words private and secret with your children. Obviously, when we're thinking about body parts that should be considered private, that they only belong to the individual, that, we want to also encourage younger children to be independent when they're bathing and toileting so that they have that sense of independency, that their private parts are their private parts. And again, that caring adults should avoid asking children to keep secrets so that we don't send those messages. So again, be aware of how we use the words private and secret. Make sure that children know the rules about body boundaries and secrets that apply to, again, adults, family members, neighbors, etc. I'm going to get more into body boundaries in a little bit here too. I'm not going to read this whole slide, and again, I'll share this slide deck out afterwards. But some things to keep in mind when we're having this dialogue with our children. I know some of you still have toddlers as well, so I included this slide here. But some things that toddlers should know, they should be able to name, they should know their name and their guardians' names, their parents' names. So I know they call you mom and dad, or might have papa, mama. But it's also good that they know your name so that if they were ever in trouble, they could be able to say, my mom's name is Sophie or something like that. So, and it's good that everyone knows that, we all have a name. God knows our name. When they're with you, that, if you're at a park or something, that, the rule that they should always be somewhere where you can see them. And, so that's a great rule to have with your kids. And again, proper names for body parts, that, when it comes to the body, no means no. And, good things to talk about with even younger kids is, we have that human instinct, if you will, that natural instinct or animal instinct or whatever you want to call it, when something isn't right, that uh-oh feeling. And we even hear young kids, young toddlers might say, when something happens, uh-oh, right? So that's a great phrase to use, like that uh-oh feeling. If you ever feel scared, if you ever feel confused, if you ever feel that uh-oh feeling, come and tell mom, come and tell dad, let us know that you're having that feeling. And that's kind of a good way to start. And the body, the young kids, when they don't have all the words, hitting or throwing things is a common thing. And, as a parent, if that ever happened to you, to even say like, ouch, hitting isn't okay because it hurts. This is my body, and you can't hurt it. And to, begin to help the toddler, the child understand that this is my body, you can't hurt it. This is your body. No one has the right to hurt you either. Now we're talking about preschool age, so we're talking about 3 and 4 year olds. They're starting to know their numbers or the big red button on your phone or whatever. Help them understand what 911 is for. If they're ever an emergency, that they can call. Obviously not a prank, but we've heard of stories of young children courageously calling 911 because a parent was hurt and stuff like that. So, with mobile phones, you might not have the landline anymore. So, maybe there's a function on your phone that, you can teach your kids as well, but, how to ask for help, how to call 911. Teach them their address, so, show them the numbers on your home or your apartment or your condo, their phone numbers, especially now, even us adults, we probably don't remember phone numbers as much because everything is just a number on a phone. But, these are things that are important. So if they ever got lost, if they were ever somehow in danger, that they could, tell an adult that they go to for help. They should always seek permission to go anywhere or get in a car, your permission before going anywhere, going in a car. So like an example I give here too at school is, we have a rule at school when we teach the kids at the beginning of the year, school safety, is that they should never open the door, a school door, for anybody, even if it's me. Or even it's Father Steve, or even it's Miss Waldron, they're to go get an adult. Same thing if you're at home, right? You don't want them just opening up the door if someone rings the doorbell, right? If someone's at the door, they should go get you, not open the door. So it's the same thing. If they're at a park somewhere and a friend asks them, hey, come here, or, let's come in my car together, they should always ask you first. And that's just a good rule of them. Teach them how to practice, role model with them how to call for help. And you can role play with them, and you can look at the bottom of the screen here with this conversation starter. If you're at a park or at a theme park or water park or a grocery store, and you can make these kind of situational conversations. And you can, at the grocery store, you can say, you know what, if you couldn't find me here, if you somehow walked away or I walked away from you, what would you do? And you ask them that to see what they would do. And, if they might give you a great answer, if they wouldn't know, then you can say, I want you to stay right where you're at. I'll come find you. Or I want you to go find a mom or a dad with kids and see if they could help you. Or, go to the grocery store clerk and say that you're lost and that you need someone's help. But you can role play those conversations with them in the actual place. So at the park, at the grocery store, at the water park, the places that you frequent. If you were here and you couldn't find me, what would you do? Or if somebody came up to you and asked you to help them find their dog, what would you do? And you'll get a sense of what's going on in their mind, and it will give you a natural opportunity to have an appropriate conversation. So again, these conversations, as you know, just will happen over and over again. But when you could have them in the actual place, in the actual location, it helps them visualize a little bit more that, yes, this could happen, and, role play what you would do. For older elementary students, so this would be for grades like K to, I'd say, grade 4, there's often family passwords that you might need to know, like if you're dropping them off at camp. So have those conversations there. It would be good to have children at this age be able to identify, they said 5, but I would say, somewhere between 3 to 5 adults that they could go to if they had any problem. And this is one of the things that I will, often talk about if we have conversations with students where, we're concerned about their well-being, or they're having a hard time, I'll usually ask them, is there an adult that you feel you can go to with any problem? And, often kids will say my mom or dad or an aunt, particularly like with middle school, where maybe maybe they don't want to be talking to their mom and dad about about all things. So they might name a teacher, they might name an aunt or an uncle or a godparent. But this is a great conversation to have with your children too, because maybe they don't always feel they could go to you because they're afraid of letting you down, or they're not sure if they can go to you because they're afraid they're gonna get in trouble. So again, who are those trusted adults? And that really gives you a great idea of, what's going on in their world. And that's still kind of a safe question. And if they can't name anybody, then that is something that, you can help them with too, or involve some of your other family members or neighbors with as well, people who you trust, to, bring additional adults into their life, as well, people that, can be kind of that safety net. Online safety is a big thing, and we start that in kindergarten, all the way up. It's part of this program as well. It's important that they know that they shouldn't keep secrets from you. And they will start asking about body parts and sex and where babies come from and all that. And, to give the correct age appropriate information about those things. And, usually people want to know, how much do you tell your kids at this age level? All kids are different and all families are different, but I think a good rule of thumb is listen to the question that they're asking and answer that question. You don't need to go on to a diatribe like I'm doing right now, which is saying a whole lot more than probably what I need to say. If they ask, where do babies come from? Mommy can say, that, baby grows in my, you can say your belly or my uterus. And when it comes time, then the baby comes out. And if that's a young child, that's probably all they need to know. They'll be like, oh, great, that's great. As they get a little older, they might ask, well, but how does it, where does it come from? Or, why mommy and dad, why does it take, a mommy and a daddy, that kind of thing. And then you can, again, give a little bit more information, but don't feel like you have to go on and on and on about it. Kids usually just need a little bit of information. They need to process it. And if they're continuing to be curious, they will come back and ask more. But again, keeping it just kind of factual, keeping it, answering the question that they're asking is usually the best way to go. We'll get in, there's a whole middle school section of this for those of you who are lucky enough to have 4th through 8th grade. But I'm leaving these here in the slides just to kind of give you a sense of how things progress as well. And we'll go more in depth in this for our families for middle school, and then of course high school. Now, just a reminder too, if you ever should suspect that your child is being groomed, you suspect abuse is happening, if you are concerned about, somebody else in the community as well as another child, or again, if a child were to come to you and divulge something to you, I can't imagine anything more horrible for a parent to have to hear from their children. So when I say this, I know it's easier to say than do, but it's really important that you would keep your own reaction in check, because there's a lot of emotions here, and listen to what they're saying to you. It would be important not to fly off the handle as much as you want to and start yelling and screaming, or, oh my God, start freaking out. It's really important to remain calm, that you get the whole story, and that you ask questions calmly. And some of the reasons for this is, if the child is being abused, and remember that 75% is committed by a known person, it could be a friend, it could be a family member. They're afraid of getting in trouble. They're afraid of getting somebody else in trouble. They think it's their fault. They think that, who knows what the person said as far as any threats against them or family members. So it's hard to know the whole story. So that calm, patient listening is going to be important, getting all the information. And at that point, you don't need to judge whether or not the report is authentic. And if you feel that there is some sort of suspected abuse, there is DCFS, there's the police to call. You can definitely, if you're, the training the Virtus training talks to parents about how to do it, you can always reach out to, me as well. And, we can help in that situation. But again, that calm, patient listening, because often a lot of kids in a situation blame themselves, and they're still afraid to come and say something. And all this education that we're doing right now still doesn't, we cannot put all the responsibility on kids. And that's why I'm so glad that you're here, that you're listening. The burden, the responsibility, the accountability is on us, the adults, to create a safe environment for kids. So again, this education is important, but it's the work of the adults, and the care of the adults is the most important thing we can do. Okay, I'm going to go into the program just so you know what's coming up, and I apologize that the slide is so fuzzy here, but there are 6 themes that parents will find starting in kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, and they get more sophisticated, obviously, as the kids get older. But I really think that these 6 themes are important, and really kind of capture all the ways that we can work together as a community to keep our kids safe and provide us the language to use for our kids. First and foremost, it's important that kids know that they are of value and dignity, and that everybody is made in the image of God. Everybody is, a person of dignity and deserving of respect and care, and he has individual gifts, and that, we need to, make sure that we're working together to not only keep ourselves safe, but each other safe as well. So, one of the things that they will find is that kids, often adolescents too, who are vulnerable socially, maybe don't feel like they fit in, don't have a lot of friends, etc., are often targets for people that want to perpetrate harm to them. It doesn't mean that it's their fault, but sometimes it just seem to be easier targets for people that really have things ill intent for kids. So it's important for us as adults, faculty, as a school, that we make sure that we continue to build up the confidence in our kids, so that they understand that they are, people that can be treated well, can demand to be treated well and listened to, and that no one has the right to harm them. And this is one of the C's of St. Ben's, confidence, right? That we want to work together. This past year in the pandemic, working with, trying to build resiliency with our students, that emotional and spiritual wellness, this is really critical. So it's important that lesson 1 or unit 1 starts with this as a reminder before we get into some of the heavier topics. I love that this program uses the words boundaries. I don't think we really have this in our vernacular very much. And everything really flows from a child's sense of boundaries, whether it's the physical boundaries, like, no, you can't touch me, no, you can't hurt me, and that we can't touch or hurt each other. But it's also those emotional boundaries as well. So when our children are learning how to develop healthy relationships, if they're with somebody who, doesn't respect their emotional boundaries, doesn't know how to treat them well, and we want our children to be able to say, you know what, I don't like that when you do that. I feel bad when you do that. It's important that kids have a sense of boundaries. And again, boundaries kind of, they vary from person to person. But I think what's most important is that the child knows where his or her boundaries are and can communicate them to whoever, to a peer, to an adult, etc. And this is also getting a sense of that, again, when I talked about the toddlers, that uh-oh feeling, that if they sense that something is making them uncomfortable, unsafe, if they know they're in a dangerous situation, that's also recognizing their boundaries too. And that they can communicate that, again, to peers, to adults, that, you know what, this is making me uncomfortable, and I'm going to tell my parents. Boom. I mean, it empowers them to take action, and that they know that they can do that. And obviously, again, as they get older, they'll start recognizing your red flags. We kind of say, raising the hair on the back of our neck. That is natural instinct, and our kids have it too. And it's so great, as our world becomes more digitized, I think we're starting to lose that a little bit, because we have this weird sense of safety because these people are on the other side of the screen. But that's the digital world is a dangerous world as well. And we want to make sure that, kids understand the word boundaries, and then we have these conversations going. I often will hear Miss Highland, who is our PE teacher for the younger kids, when kids aren't getting along together or arguing with each other, or, um, the, the physical space could be a problem. If a kid gets too close to them, they don't, why is he touching me? That kind of thing. She will often say to the kids, remember your boundaries, and remember it's okay to say to the other person, you're cross, I don't like that when you do that. So she'll emphasize as well boundaries, particularly because she is working with gross and fine motor skills for our young kids. So boundaries is, a big conversation there. Lesson 3 or unit 3 will focus on friendship and bullying. Again, we want to make sure that our kids, grow in confidence, start to learn their boundaries and express where their boundaries are. And knowing these things can help create healthy relationships with others. We also want to make sure that kids have, the ability to know where to go if they need help, if they see bullying, if they experience bullying. And again, just the constant reiteration about dignity and respect. In this, St. Ben's is an inclusive school too. So, this really, again, fits in our mission that, everybody, again, is a child of God. Everybody is deserving of dignity and respect. And therefore, we need to honor each other and support each other as well. I really like this component too in this program. It's safety awareness. We tell our kids, that they need to be respectful. They need to be respectful of adults, that kind of thing. Don't talk back, all that stuff. But if we teach our kids that, yes, there are going to be situations that not every adult is going to, not every adult can necessarily be trusted here, or there are some people that might want to do you harm, and to think about those situations where that might happen to a child, and rehearse something that we'll see in this program with the younger ones, which is know, go, yell, tell. And I'll show you a slide of what I mean with this. But it is okay if an adult or even a peer is going to do something, or they feel they're in danger, that it's okay to say no, to be a little rude and run away and not follow their directions. If that adult or if that peer is asking them to do something wrong or is going to do them some harm. And, we go back to our kids, we teach them to be polite. And unfortunately, sometimes because we're so polite, that's where kids just don't know that they think it's going to be wrong if they yell at an adult like, hey, stop that, I don't like it. So there's this conflicting message, and it's so important that you as adults, as their parents, assure them that if any adult were ever to do something that is going to cause them harm, or something that they don't like in terms of something with their bodies, they have every right, that they have your permission to yell at that adult, to say, no, I don't want to be touched there, or no, I'm not going to go with you, because if they feel it's a stranger trying to lure them, etc. So that's something to really kind of help kids understand, because again, we teach them to be polite, be respectful of adults, and but if they always think that that's how they have to respond to adults, then that it can be confusing to them. So let them know there is a situation in which it is okay for you to not be respectful, and this is the situation. Our program too, also, as the kids get older, talk about self-defense strategies. So I think I forget which grade it is. I think it's a little older, but like 4th and 5th grade. do they even start talking about where's the best place to kick at somebody if someone is actually literally physically hurting them? So we're being more explicit here with child safety as well. Obviously, digital citizenship is an important part. Now, our STEM teacher, Jen Hoban, is already talking about this and has been talking about this in STEM class, but we're also going to do this in the context of religion class as well, because we want kids to understand that the internet, the digital world is a gift from God, but we also need to use it safely. We need to use it appropriately. We need to use it responsively. And that, our Catholic identity doesn't stop when we go online. And this is really interesting in that, I've had conversations with middle school kids who, they are one way here at school, but because, the world, they can be just about anybody on the internet, right? They become this totally different persona online. I mean, not always a nice persona, but they might think they're more cool, or this is how it should be, or maybe they're getting more friends this way. And we want to reiterate that who we are in person is who we should be online as well. And again, using etiquette. And then lastly, the lesson set 6, My Sacred Self. This will evolve, through the grade levels, with obviously the human life, human growth and development. And then as we start in 5th grade and up, we'll talk about human sexuality, puberty, human reproduction, how, a baby grows. And it comes with appropriate, age appropriate videos as well that the teachers will show with the kids. So at least y'all don't have to worry about this until about 5th grade, but it will come up, and that just your prep work in advance, making sure that kids use proper, the real names for body parts. If they can come to you and ask questions, and you can give age appropriate responses back. It will communicate that, human sexuality is not dirty, that it is a gift from God, that it's something that we need to treat respectfully, and honestly and openly. And your work in the younger ages help prep us for those conversations that we have in our middle school. The program components, I think the biggest things that you probably need to be aware of would be some of the worksheets that would be coming home. So there will be a worksheet that they'll do one side in class, and then there is the follow-up at home. So the backside is usually something that can be done with parents at home. So one side usually gets done at school, the backside can be something that the teachers will send home for the parents to have a conversation. And then I mentioned the videos. What will come home in addition, and I'm just going to pull this up so you can see, is there'll be that worksheet. The teachers will email parents their at-home guide for the lesson that is done for the day. So that sheet that comes home, you'll get 2-3 page support here, and it'll give you some things to think about, and questions to think about, things to ask your children. There's an opportunity to even pray with your child. There's quickies, little prayers to pray with your children as well. But then there always give some good conversations about, here are something else I'd like to say to you. Let's have a conversation about it. So you can go in depth of this as much as you want. And this is really meant for parents to have ongoing conversations with your child. So you could do this, all in one fell swoop when that worksheet comes home. Or you can, keep these conversations going in the car, at the park, etc. So, and like I said, they'll give you some language to use as well. So if you feel like you need that support, they give child appropriate, parent appropriate language to use too. So look out for these that will be coming as well. So this is an example of a kindergarten one for lesson 4, which is safety awareness. Let me see if I can go back now. And I'll show you page number with 3rd grade. Now this is teacher materials, but I'll show you kind of example of, what teachers will be using for their slide presentation. So this is grade 3. And this is when we're, teachers will be talking about, adults that might have bad plans for you as the children, and some things that they need to be aware of, such as an adult paying way too much attention to you that's making you uncomfortable, buying you secret presents. You see that word, secret presents, asking you to keep a secret. They try to touch you or harm you. They try to keep you away from your family. So again, this is an example of a 3rd grade lesson that the teachers will do. This is that no, go, yell, tell lesson. And, these are pretty simple things that all of us can, reiterate back at home. And this is why we're sharing this with our parents as well, so that you also have some language as well. Again, no is really important for the kids now to say, and they probably have no problem telling you no, but I don't mean this in terms of, no to chores or no to, sitting, putting down your phone at dinner or something like that. It really means that if someone's gonna, a situation that makes them uncomfortable, someone might be doing something wrong, they can say no. It's okay to run if they obviously feel that they're in danger and go to a place that is safe. And a good question to have with your kids is, if you had to run to safety, where would you go? And again, you can kind of get in the mind of your children and get a sense of how aware are they of their surroundings, of their neighborhood, of people that that trusted people that they know too. Obviously, we always tell them not to yell, but there are going to be times where it's okay to yell, and that you give them permission and when those situations are. And obviously telling, you should reiterate over and over and over again that it is always okay to come and talk to you, even if they feel they made a mistake, even if they feel they did something wrong. And that patient, calm listening, you can practice, you can model always. So it doesn't have, the first time should not be when something really bad happens. It could be that they broke your favorite lamp, and that you listen calmly and you have that conversation. The more you can model that, the more, you're walking the talk. And if your child is ever in that unfortunate situation where something is going on, they know that they'll be able to come to you and that you'll listen calmly. Because remember, there's so many emotions that are attached to situations where a child is being groomed by a child sexual predator. This is an example of, online safety guidelines that, our 3rd graders would use. And again, we do this in age appropriate ways all the way through. And again, this is just a sample. Your teachers will send you the age appropriate correlating materials as they go through. Okay, I did a lot. I know it's already 9:24, but there's just a lot to say. I don't know if there are any questions right now that anyone has that's burning. And again, because I don't have a chat feature, you're going to have to unmute yourself and ask it.
Hi, Ms. Gemma. This is Claudia Answer here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Claudia.
Great presentation. Thank you so much. I was wondering, so are you going to start talking to the kids about these subjects as well? And if so, in what manner or context?
Sure. So the homeroom teachers are planning to start this. Some grade levels might be next week, but much of it's going to be in May. And they're going to email kind of the planned schedule so that parents know what topic and when. And they'll also send the parent handouts in advance so that parents know what is coming and when is coming. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. It's we don't have, let's put it this way, we're not having a safe and sacred week. So it's but it's coming about now, and that's why we're doing this workshop now and next week. I think most of the lessons are going to be hitting in May. Usually the first lesson is going to be the dignity of self, and that's usually a conversation we've had all year. That's not something that this is the first time that they're hearing about. So it'll give parents an opportunity to prep.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Gemmo. It's Marie Cromwell. I just have
Hi.
a question. Since
Yeah.
we did a chance, obviously, last year to do some of these lessons during last year's spring.
Nope.
Will this year kind of include, for second graders as an example, the second grade content plus the first grade content, or will they just be starting with the second grade?
They're probably going to just be starting with the second grade. And there's one grade level that we are going to go back and do, and that would be our fifth graders, where they get the fun conversation about puberty. So we are going to make sure that we go back and do that. But since this pretty much builds on prior content, looking at the lessons that are there, I feel that, in these grade levels where the teachers are going to pick up from are going to be just fine. So, we have talked about, bullying before. We've talked about online safety before. So those in digital citizenship, those things have been happening. Boundaries is probably going to be new to our St. Ben's vernacular, if you will. So it'll be more explicit. However, I still think it's still, the kids will be fine with that.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Any other questions? All right. Well, like I said, the teachers will be emailing the individual grade level parents, when they'll begin these lessons, and sending the parent handouts in advance. And, if you have additional questions, you can definitely reach out to your child's homeroom teacher. If there are, other things more about this presentation that you'd like to know more about, please let me know. For those of you that are still on, I guess, was there something that I did not cover that you were hoping that I did, for even like the future, when I do this again?
Ms.
I
Gemmo, this
personally
is
thought great stuff.
start. Yeah, and this is Claudia again. Yeah, I think this was really good. I think the like the online threat that they face with playing these online games,
Yes.
and I guess if we, I don't know, make sure we touch that matter with them.
Yeah, I actually think I'd like to do another presentation. Just, that in of itself is an hour. And it's something that just continues to evolve. I mean, it's really a challenge to stay on top of it. So, and that's where I would like to bring somebody in that even can that's in it, that can really help as well. So that, Claudia, could be something that we can look for more in the future. But this is just their conversations that we have continually with our kids here. And thankfully we have just so all of you know, we have a pretty sophisticated firewall and student technology monitoring software or application or service, I should say, that we use. So, there's the protection from like a firewall so kids can't access naughty stuff. And then there's the aspect of keeping our students and family information safe and secure from people that might want to, steal information and that kind of stuff. But then there's just the monitoring of student use of technology. Our students, all are on computers and they can access, so many great resources on the internet, but they can also, they know how to, use Discord and chat with kids and, geez, it's like the Wild West. And so we have this monitoring software that, looks for things that could be dangerous, whether it's bullying, any kind of grooming, any kind of, dangerous stuff, violence, safety issues. And we actually pay for an additional service to have, because it's pretty sophisticated that something is looking through and scanning what the kids are writing and seeing and saying and that kind of stuff, and sends the core admin team alerts when something comes up that we need to look into. And it's been very insightful into the world of our kids. So that's why this slideshow, this presentation is just really helpful that we're all on the same board, because again, there's what we see as adults, and then there's the online world, and we have to make sure our kids, that we have regular conversations with our kids, because they have to navigate these two environments, these two worlds, if you will. There's the online and then real, it's tricky, so we just have to have these conversations, beware. But anyway, I'm rambling. Thanks, Claude. I will, we'll see if we can bring somebody in for that.
Miss Gemma, this is Kara Speck.
Yeah.
Quickly, to that point, I'm sure other parents felt this. I was a little surprised by the robust nature of the Microsoft Teams chatting with my kid and her friends and her classmates. Is that the kind of thing you're monitoring?
Yes.
Okay, I told her that you read these all, and her teacher and but I doubted that was actually the case. But is that, so they're just looking for like catchphrases, or, I was kind of trying to make the point, whatever you write, like other people are going to be able to read,
sure,
even if you think it's private.
Yeah. Well, we tell the kids that nothing you do on our network and on our computers is private. Some kids have found out the unfortunate way that what we say is true. But it's interesting. The monitoring software that we use is called Smoothwall. It can look for pictures, words, and even the kids in the middle school think they're slick and think if they take out vowels out of words, because they're looking or want to say something. It has picked up on the kinds of things that kids do to try to get around the security or safety or whatever. So yeah, it does capture, it does look for many different things. So it captures a lot. I'm really impressed. And what it does too, is it just doesn't capture the phrase. It will actually take a screenshot. So what's helpful for us is we know the context of what was being typed in or the pictures. So I think it's helpful because, again, as the kids get older and, some of the content is a little more sophisticated or mature, if they're writing something that sounds kind of violent, but yet we know that, okay, they're talking about World War II, it literally comes up with a screenshot. So we know that the lesson is in context. So it's been very insightful for us.
What's like the tipping point for when you would start a conversation with a kid about something that was written?
Well, obviously, if a child is in danger, or if we have a sense that there's explicit bullying going on, if there is, their behavior online, and and what's kind of interesting is it's not always necessarily their St. Ben's friends. It's the people that they have, their online friends. And, again, kind of this double persona that somebody has. We'll have conversations around that. Obviously, if anything's violent, anything that would even, smell like self-harm. Or if we just feel that, as we see stuff, it's repeated over and over again. And they're just, especially if it's a new behavior and now they're in this mode, or they're practicing it, and it's not like a one-time deal, it's continual, then we'll also bring them in as well. So we look for a variety of things with that. I hope I answered that question.
Yep, thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, Ms. Gimo, it's Marie again.
Mhm.
Real quick, I was curious, does the new software disable the incognito feature that is available now on some phones and devices?
Well, so this won't translate to student phones, so just keep that in mind. This is just on
Oh,
the
of course. I just
student
thought I'd
device.
seen it, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't on the student device.
So the kids, because of the nature of our system, the one thing that kids can do is open up a third-party browser or download another browser on their computer and get around the network. However, that it does, so they can access it, we become aware of it, so they can't get around that monitoring piece. So they might be able to access something, but we know right away, and then then they're in a lot of trouble. It's a level D violation in middle school, so it's pretty serious if they do that.
Ms. Gemma, this is Marco Fernandez. Is
Hi.
there any, hi, is there any content on kids misbehaving or acting inappropriately with other kids that we should be aware of?
What do you mean by that?
Well, as we know, a lot of these kids, it's learned behavior, unfortunately, if it was happened to them, and how would they act towards other kids in a private or classroom setting?
Can I ask, are you talking about abuse or bullying or all of it?
Both actually.
And are you asking, is there content for parents to learn more about, or are we talking about it within the school with the kids?
Actually, both. I mean, it could be what should be aware of when our son comes home and saying that his classmate was acting inappropriately with him. How do we address it, and what should we look for? And it goes back to saying, if we see something, you got to say something.
Right.
So
right.
it really hits all aspects: bullying,
Mm-hmm.
abuse, mental, physical.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, first of all, it goes back to the whole conversation with, that when we're talking about that idea of boundaries, right? And our kids understand what those boundaries are with themselves, that, if a child is making a peer, a classmate's making them uncomfortable, that they speak up, but that they also tell an adult. Now, in the younger grades, they often will go tell an adult that there's an issue, so tell a teacher, that kind of thing. However, as they get older, children will either feel that they'll try to handle it themselves, or they don't want to tell because they feel that they're tattling. Especially like in middle school, they often won't report it because they feel that, number one, they're tattling. Number two, they feel that the adults are going to make it worse. And for the short term, we often do, because now there's action, there's consequences, and a child that really wants to engage in bullying behaviors will then get their peers to try to do something, or try to go underground with bullying and try to get off of our radar. So that's why it's kind of why I like this program, is that it reminds us all that we're all made in the image of God. It reminds us all that we have boundaries. reminds us all that bullying is not okay, and this is what we need to do to prevent it, to react to it. It reminds us all that we need to be confident and that we have permission to say, like, again, to that no go yell tell. You know, again, we tell kids not to yell, but if you're in danger, if somebody is doing something wrong, say something loud. You get, you know, yell, say no. And that would be an example of, you know, even like in middle school where they don't want to tattle, but we would often tell the students, like, if that's happening, say something a little louder to get the teacher's attention. Like, hey, stop that. You know, where they're fending for themselves, but again, that's where the teacher can intervene and it's no longer tattling. Now the teacher is aware of it. So all these strategies do give students the tools to you know, try to help in a situation. And again, ultimately, you know, as a parent, if a child were to come to you and say to you that this is happening at home, first of all, thank them for letting them know that, or that they had the courage to come and tell you this. And again, just that patient listening, and try to get all the information. And then I would go back to the school, you know, start with the teacher, or again, if it's really egregious, you can talk to Miss Waldron, me, or Miss D, so that we can investigate as well. But, you know, we certainly don't want any child, you know, to feel unsafe here as well. So, you know, I hope, I don't know, I'm rambling, but I hope that kind of gives you a sense of, I think this program does kind of come with that capacity to help parents in this regard.
It does, and thank you. But how do we encourage how do we encourage a kid, or how do we get a kid to go one-on-one with a teacher or a counselor, social worker, so they could talk about this? Because in a classroom setting, they're not going to say something because they're going to be embarrassed or so. Is there anything planned to have one-on-one sessions with a child so they could really so they could know what's going on in their lives, especially if you see those red flags?
Sure.
And I'm sorry, and then you
yeah.
mentioned this could be reintroduced to the 5th graders, but what about the 6th and 7th and 8th graders? I think this has to be an annual, quarterly reminder.
Yeah, so this is, so thank you. This is an annual program that we do K-8, and it's every year. The program we used to use was called Family Life. And, but I just felt that the program was a little old, it was outdated, even though they had updated it. This particular program, I just thought how they organized the lessons and how intentional they were about their conversation, the topics was important. So, you know, this is an orientation we're doing for parents, but the kids should get this every year. The kids did not get it last year because we went remote, and I think we were all just kind of figuring out the virtual world. And these are such important but tough conversations. And I think it was more important that we had the kids in person in order to have these conversations. So we just didn't get to it last year. So that's what I mean by that. We're going to go back and do the 5th grade lessons because they missed the conversations around puberty and, you know, basically puberty. And so we're going to do that in person here, but every year the kids get this and they'll just get this new program. So, and every year we do the parent workshop as well. This is the first time I've done it at this age level because again, this program is much more explicit in these conversations than the Benzinger program was. So I just felt like this was probably going to be necessary to do. And again, so we'll do this every year. The kids will get it every year. And as you know, it just said, this is an ongoing conversation. This can't be one and done. We have to continue on with it. So, and then as far as encouraging, you know, kids to reach out to an adult, you know, I guess it's important for us as a community, as a staff, to make sure that our teachers get to know their students, obviously appropriately, but get them know them well, and that they also create that safe relationship with their students, a safe, appropriate relationship with their students, that if they need to talk about something that they can. We do have a full-time counselor on staff, thanks be to God for that. So she does, have a relationship with the kids. So, the kids can, request to see her. Now, for the upper grade kids, it's a little bit more open because they're a little bit more independent. And that they have a process in order to be able to, see Miss Blaskow as well. I think for the younger kids, because our nurse, Heather Perez, is everywhere, it's interesting because the younger kids don't have the words to say, like, I need to talk to somebody. So instead they say, my finger hurts, I need a Band-Aid. And then they go see, Nurse Perez. And, Nurse Perez kind of knows what we call her frequent flyers or whatever, those kids that just kind of need the extra coddling or conversation. So again, we're lucky to have that kind of supportive community and faculty here as well. When they get to the upper grades, we also have advisory. So we have small gender-based small group conversations, and the kids have advisors. And for I think for 4th grade and up, we have taught the kids about our anonymous bullying reporting tool that we have online called Stop It. So if all of these safeguards and all these things that we put in place as adults still do not give a child a safe place to go, they have an anonymous place to go, and they can report if there's a problem bullying, they're worried about a friend, and that kind of thing. So there's a number of layers here that we have in place for our kids.
Great, thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Quick question, who are the advisors you're referencing to? Are they
So,
teachers or staff?
A mix of both. So in middle school, and again, this year is a little different because we had to stick with the cohort model. But in a traditional school year, for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we have something called advisory, where the kids meet once a week and in small groups, and we'll talk about things that are important to them. We have a curriculum, but sometimes we need to also pay attention to what's on the kids' minds and chat with them. So they're middle school teachers, they're administrators. So like Miss Waldron is an advisor, I'm an advisor, Mr. Carty is an advisor, the counselor is an advisor. And we do that so that we can have small groups of somewhere between like 6 to 8 kids in a group.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you for staying on, everybody. I really appreciate it. If there are any follow-up questions or suggestions, because this is the first time I'm doing it with this particular program, I am definitely open to it. You can send me an email afterwards. I will be sending out the slide deck for everybody, and again, the recording of today's presentation. All right. And Ms. Waldron, if you're still on, thank you for being my co-pilot. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to use you, but I don't know, do you want to say anything? Or...
No chat feature made this the easiest co-hosting gig I've ever had. And if people are hoping to hear me try and pronounce weird words, sorry.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you all have a great day, and thank you for being a part of making our community safe for our children. Have a great day.